On Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2026, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius arrived in Ottawa and entered the CANSEC Defense Exhibition, the largest yearly defense and security trade event in Canada, organized by the Canadian Association of Defense and Security Industries. Standing beside Canada's Defense Minister David McGuinty, he presented an offer unlike anything a German defense minister had ever proposed to Canada before. The proposal promised 4 submarines for the Royal Canadian Navy delivered by 2036. It included an estimated $86 billion added to Canada's gross domestic product, 654,695 job years across the duration of the project, and $160 billion in overall economic activity. The package also outlined 2 submarine sustainment facilities, one located on each Canadian coastline. Germany proposed a Canadian factory dedicated to producing heavy torpedoes, along with anti-torpedo defense systems. Another facility would test and potentially manufacture hypersonic missiles inside Canada itself. The proposal extended further. Submarine propulsion technology and battery systems would be built in Canada. 4 signed teaming agreements would integrate Canadian Indigenous development organizations into the industrial network connected to the project. German investment was also tied to the port of Churchill, with plans to transform it into a major export center for liquefied natural gas and critical minerals. In Alberta, a carbon capture project using TKMS technology would be developed through a partnership with the provincial government. But the most remarkable element was hidden behind the industrial promises. Germany and Norway, both already purchasing the same TKMS Type II 12CD submarines currently under production, offered to surrender 1 submarine each from their own national orders so Canada could move ahead in the delivery queue. That decision would allow Canada to receive submarines earlier than normal production timelines would otherwise permit. This was not a routine procurement proposal. Germany and Norway were treating Canada's future submarine fleet as a shared strategic concern tied directly to NATO unity, Arctic defense, and alliance credibility during a period of pressure not experienced since the Cold War. The central issue in the competition had always been delivery timing. That question shaped the entire race, and Germany's announcement this week fundamentally changed the balance. Canada's 4 Victoria-class submarines, purchased secondhand from the Royal Navy beginning in 1998, are moving toward the limits of their operational viability. For years, Canadian defense planning identified 2035 as the critical target date for the first replacement submarine entering service. That timeline is not simply administrative. It reflects a strategic requirement. Beyond the middle of the 2030s, Canada's underwater defense capability in the Atlantic, Pacific, and especially the Arctic begins to weaken precisely as security threats in those regions continue rising sharply. South Korea's Hanwha Ocean made the 2035 deadline the centerpiece of its campaign. Offering the KSS 3 Batch 2 submarine in cooperation with Hyundai Heavy Industries, Hanwha stated publicly that 4 submarines could be delivered to Canada before 2035 if an agreement is signed during 2026. Recently, Hanwha sailed one of its KSS 3 submarines to Victoria, British Columbia, where Canadian naval personnel were invited aboard for a familiarization voyage. It was a direct demonstration of confidence in the platform itself. Until this week, Germany's TKMS had presented a more cautious timeline. Earlier discussions with the Carney cabinet in Kiel projected an initial delivery in 2034, followed by a second in 2037. That schedule left the remaining submarines arriving late in the decade and gave Hanwha a political advantage during the competition. Then, Boris Pistorius arrived in Ottawa and changed the schedule entirely. TKMS Chief Executive Officer Oliver Burkhard presented a new sequence that military planners could immediately map onto operational timelines. 2032, 2033, 2035, 2036, 4 submarines delivered across a 4-year span, not one submarine in 2034 and another in 2037, 4 boats delivered steadily in 4 consecutive years. The mechanism behind the acceleration is what makes the proposal strategically significant far beyond commercial competition. Germany and Norway, both already purchasing Type II 12CD submarines for their own fleets, and both with construction underway at TKMS shipyards in Kiel and Wismar, each agreed to surrender 1 production slot to Canada. Germany would delay one of its own deliveries. Norway would do the same. Canada would move directly to the front of a submarine production chain that is already active and already delivering operational vessels. Oliver Burkhard explained the significance of that arrangement clearly. Canada would enter an established NATO submarine project, already under construction and specifically engineered for Arctic missions, as well as worldwide deployment. This is not a theoretical concept sitting on paper. The submarine is already being built for 2 allied fleets. Canada is being offered a place inside that existing manufacturing cycle instead of waiting for an entirely new line to be created. That difference matters more than any other technical factor in the competition. One proposal relies on a program already moving forward. The other would still need to begin. To understand the importance of the offer, it is necessary to examine what the Type 212CD actually represents, because the submarine was created for precisely the operational conditions Canada must eventually control. The Type 212CD emerged from a joint German and Norwegian design effort. The contract was signed in July of 2021 with a combined value estimated at approximately $5.5 billion for both countries. Construction officially began at TKMS shipyards in September of 2023. The submarine displaces roughly 2,500 tons on the surface and 2,800 tons underwater. Its overall length is 73 meter, with a beam measuring 10 meter. Its propulsion architecture combines two MTU 4000 series diesel generators with lithium-ion battery systems. Technology connected to supply chains, now being developed by E3 Lithium in Alberta and Frontier Lithium in Ontario. The submarine also uses a fourth-generation proton exchange membrane fuel cell air-independent propulsion system. That capability allows the vessel to remain submerged for long periods without operating diesel engines. Its AIP endurance reaches as much as 41 days underwater without repeated snorkeling. 41 days beneath the surface, 41 days without exposing a mast to radar in Arctic waters where ice conditions may prevent surfacing entirely, and where NATO analysts now assess Russian submarine activity at Cold War intensity levels as the standard environment rather than the exception. That endurance figure is not merely a technical specification. It defines whether a submarine can effectively function in the high north at all. The combat system for the Type 212CD was developed by the KTA Naval Systems Consortium, a partnership involving TKMS, Atlas Electronic, and Norway's Kongsberg. This is the same Kongsberg responsible for producing the Naval Strike Missile, the Joint Strike Missile, the NASAMS Air Defense Network donated by Canada to Ukraine, and Norway's Arctic satellite surveillance systems. The submarine carries 6 533mm torpedo tubes, capable of launching heavyweight torpedoes, anti-ship missiles, and unmanned underwater vehicles. Its hull design incorporates low observable shaping intended to minimize both acoustic and sensor signatures. If Canada joins Germany and Norway in purchasing the platform, the combined fleet across all three nations would total 24 Type 212CD submarines, creating the largest conventional submarine force on Earth. That scale matters not only for production efficiency, but also for operational compatibility. According to CBC reporting on the shared fleet arrangement, Norway's defense leadership stated that nearly everything could become interchangeable between the participating navies: spare parts, supplies, training, even crews. Rear Admiral Run Gudson described the concept directly. The combined arrangement would be both highly cost-effective and extremely powerful. The industrial proposal attached to Germany's TKMS bid goes far beyond submarine production itself and stands apart from anything previously seen in Canadian defense procurement. The package is structured to operate simultaneously as a military acquisition project and a nation-building industrial investment spanning 6 separate sectors. On the naval side alone, the plan includes 2 submarine maintenance centers, one positioned on the Pacific coast and another on the Atlantic coast. Both facilities would be constructed using the design model of TKMS's existing Norwegian maintenance complex. Canadian workers would be trained to the same standards as Norwegian submarine maintenance personnel. The agreement also includes Canadian manufacturing capability for the Sea Spider anti-torpedo torpedo defense system. TKMS has already committed to co-developing the program with Canadian industry, with major components designed and built inside Canada. Submarine propulsion systems and battery production would also take place in Canada, placing Canadian labor directly into the most technically advanced area of submarine construction.